Jefferson had purchased the Louisiana Territory from the French early in his presidency. He'd wanted it to be the safe haven for freed slaves. It was supposed to be a bubble, pronounced cage, for blacks, where they could be safe and where white people could be safe from their potential response to, I don't know, the whole slavery thing. Colonization within the country, which was like black people being banished to the basement of the house they'd built under the premise that it was better than sleeping in the street. But the Louisiana Territory got shaky when the question of Missouri came into play. You have to remember that your map isn't the map they were using. The 50 states didn't exist yet, so Louisiana, or as it was known then, the Louisiana Territory, took up the entire middle of the country. It stretched from north to south. It wasn't the boot as we know it now. Trombones and red beans? No. The northern part of that swath of Louisiana was cut into what became the Missouri Territory. Its location, the Missouri part, was almost right smack in the middle of the country, meaning there was a geographical conundrum to be dealt with. Would Missouri be considered a slave state or a free state? Well, the answer is there was a bill passed to admit Missouri into the Union, the North, as a slave state. A man named James Talmadge Jr. added an amendment to that bill that would have made it illegal for enslaved Africans to enter the new state, and stated that all children born from slaves in the state would be freed at the age of 25. The Talmadge Amendment sparked an explosive debate that burned for 2 years. Southerners saw this as a trick to limit the political power of Southern agriculture and mess with their money and leverage in the House of Representatives, and therefore their power. Ultimately, the debate was cooled by another compromise, the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Congress agreed to go on and admit Missouri as a slave state, but they'd also admit Maine as a free state to make sure there was still an equal amount of slave states and free states, so that no region or way of governing felt disadvantaged. Balance. And also to prohibit the introduction of slavery in the northern section of Jefferson's vast Louisiana Territory, his experimental land for colonization, an experiment that seemed unlikely.